Hello and welcome to today's session. I hope you're all doing amazingly well from whichever part of the world you are watching. Today's session is for those wellness leaders who have climbed very high up in the corporate ladder and they're pretty much at the top of the mountain range. So you've worked very hard, you've climbed up the ranks, you have earned the salary you're earning. You're earning a very good salary. You're highly regarded within the industry. You're highly regarded within the company. And you're pretty much the holy grail of wellness knowledge. And you've also had the luck to be able to kind of down or offload the day to day operational load to other people. And you're enjoying that big picture strategy role. You're traveling a lot, you're creating new concepts, but you've reached this point that the glam of all this role has now got to the point where it no longer stimulates you, it no longer excites you, and every single time you need to travel, you get tired or you're not enjoying it that much. And you would love to set something up of your own, but you're too scared to take that leap because you have climbed so high up that you know matching your salary, even in another role within the industry, will not be easy. So, setting up on your own will also most likely mean that you won't get to your same quality of life in terms of income until a good few years. So, this episode is for you because yes, it's scary to take the leap. Yes, there is a very high probability that it'll take you a good couple of years to match the same quality of life that you have in your current role. But the price you pay staying in a role that no longer stimulates you is far higher than the risk you take going into uncharted territory. And here's also another thing you know deep down that whether you choose to take the leap today or in 5 years, in 5 years' time or 10 years or X number of years, you know that your current role, your job is secure for only so long. There will be someone else who will come behind you and will replace you because that's just the way corporate works. You know, we reach a certain level, we are out there, reach a certain age, and then, the next generation needs to come enough leaders. And that's a good thing. But that means you will have no choice but to actually either set up on your own, finally, or find another job that will probably be far less stimulating and a lower salary. We're talking about X numbers down the line, X number of years down the line. So, how can you safely take this transition now? While you're at the top of the mountain, you're highly regarded, you have very good memories, there is no sour taste or anything. You're going to go on your terms and create something new. The way you do that, the way you take that transition is by building your safety net. And this is actually step 5 of my 5-step process that I teach within the Wellness Consultant Blueprint. The importance of building that safety net. Now, I've been in the consulting game for 18 years, and twice I've had to crawl back to full time employment while still keeping my business running because I couldn't put food in my table. And my problem was never a pipeline problem. I always had clients. My problem was actually getting paid for the work I was doing. So that was a skill I had to learn to make sure I was getting paid upfront, and also filtering those clients who pay versus those who don't, and also equipping myself with the knowledge and what do you call it, support when I got into that situation where someone does not pay. So that was my main learning curve. And it can be different things for different consultants out there. For others, it's their pipeline. But for me, it was never the pipeline, it was getting paid for work I actually did do. So, how do you take this transition? You know, how do you successfully transition into uncharted territory? And before I go into that, what I would like to highlight is that we think as wellness leaders, if we're, for example, on 150K salary, amazing benefits, that if only we managed to get 150K's worth of revenue as a consultant, one or two big gigs a year, we're great. But here's the reality: the quality of life you have when you are on 150K salary, the benefits you have, the net wages you take, the holiday pay and the public holidays, and all your rights as an employee, that is a very high salary for any industry. And when you're trying to build a business, we think that if we get our consulting business to that 150K gross, that we will enjoy the same quality of life and benefits as we had when we had that 150K salary. And the truth is, that simply isn't true. You know, you learn that the hard way, because when you have your consulting business, when the consulting business is generating revenue of 150K, from there you have to pay your taxes. And from there, you have to deduct all the business related expenses that help you keep the lights on. Your team, your VAs, your whatever you do in terms of sales and marketing, all the conferences you go to, any kind of admin or strategic support you need, your accountants, your lawyers, you have to deduct all those expenses. And then from there, that net operating profit, you have to draw your salary and live off that. And you quickly find out that you need to add at least 50% more of total revenue if you want to get anywhere near the quality of life you had at that 150K. So you probably need more like 200 or 225K in terms of revenue generation on a consulting business, even if you're a freelancer and a one-person show with a few people helping you ad hoc, because you have to take and deduct out your business-related expenses and travel, and then from there deduct your living expenses. So with whatever revenue you make, you need to pay the bills to keep the lights on in your business, and not only putting your business into life support machine, but keeping the lights on, meaning that tomorrow the lights will be switched on again, your business is growing, you're getting new people in, you're getting new clients, and you're growing as a team, etc. Plus, bring food to the table at home. So your 150K salary, just matching it in a consulting business won't cut it out. And this is where many wellness consultants fail, because they've simply miscalculated the amount of revenue and the amount of effort required to match a very high position or a very high salary in a day-to-day job within the wellness industry or wellness in hospitality. Now, I say that not to scare you off. I say that so that you get in to consulting with your eyes open. You have a very realistic lens of what it will take to replace your current quality of life in terms of money and benefits when you go into consulting. They're two different ball games. But there is a way to actually surpass your salary, what you were earning with consulting. And you do that through building that safety net. Now, I don't know who of you have read the book Shoe Dog. It's about Phil Knight, the founder of Nike. And when I read the book a few years ago, when I think I just published my book, The Wellness Asset, I found it fascinating how Phil Knight is actually an accountant and he maintained his full-time job for 10 years before he actually went 100% into his business. So he had a safety net and his business was making money. But any money he was making, he was injecting it back into the business. And he made sure that the food on his table was being paid by his full-time job, which was accounting. So in my wellness consultant blueprint, the fifth stage is all about creating that safety net, being very clear on what exactly you need for your day-to-day expenses. And on top of that, add a 20% buffer for those unexpected expenses that happen in life, which always do. And then with your business, build that business realistically. So it's like when you create your business, it's your little baby. Now, you can't expect your baby to look after you when they're a few months old or a few years old. When they're a grown adult, maybe they could retire you, but it takes a lot of growing and a lot of effort to get to that point where they can retire you. And I think that is the lens with which we need to enter into consulting. And those consultants that don't make it is because simply they've expected that their baby needs to feed them. They've put too much pressure on a consulting business or any business that they're setting up and expecting it to pay for them at very early stages. So that translate 45K, 50K, 100K, 150K, translate that same in terms of revenue in your consulting business. You're not comparing apples with apples. So this is where that safety net comes in place. And before anyone takes a leap from wherever they are today into consulting, one of the key things we do in the Wellness Consultant Blueprint is sit down and figure out that number. What number do you need in order to live? And not put that unfair pressure on your business. And then secondly, we look at what are the easy options to actually ensure that I can pay my bills. So what is the equivalent of that accountant job that Phil Knight had for me? And then how long will I need this for? Realistically speaking, how long will I need it for? And I think the success to my consulting business, why I'm still here, despite having had to return to full-time employment twice while keeping my business open, is that I think this is what I learned back in my Goldman Sachs days, that you need that safety net. You need to make sure that your basic expenses are covered. That is not the business's problem. Your basic expenses are your problem. And you find that from any source of income that you can generate quickly and stably and easily, because it has to be sustainable. You need to be able to put food on the table, and whatever that source of revenue is, it has to be easy. It can't be a time, energy, or brain suck, because it simply won't be sustainable. You won't be able to do that for 10 years. How Phil Knight did it. But if you do keep that safety net very close to you and you're walking up that tightrope to get to your goal, your destination, there will be a day where your consulting business will give you far more than what any job would ever have given you, even if you are at the top of the mountain range. So today, what I wanted to do was to just normalize that if you're at that top of the mountain range, now it doesn't matter where you are within that consulting, within the wellness leadership role that you have, being an employee, just know that you need to compare apples with apples. So it's not that simple to say you're making, let's say, 50K or 100K right now, your gross salary, and that if you leap into consulting, that 50 or 100K would give you that same quality of life, because it won't. And if we go into consulting knowing it, if we go into that transition knowing that, we will find another source of income to ensure that you can put food on the table, that you can still enjoy the quality of life that you need and want to enjoy, and still build your business. Because that is what ensures you have success in the long term. So, on that inspiring note, I wish you all a beautiful day ahead. Take care now.